David Starkey is old enough to remember the 2nd of June, 1953, when Queen Elizabeth II was crowned. And I just thought it'd be rather nice, David, to
Have a reminiscence.
well, absolutely.
Well, let's do it. I was a boy of 8. I was in my best suit, which was grey. I had a tartan, believe it or not, a tartan tie. My socks pulled up very smartly. My mother was in a grey buck. I can still see it, sort of thing the Queen wore, rather tight-fitted, longish skirt, grey. She had a borrowed fox fur on because this was a neighbour's house. Our next door neighbour was socially aspirant, and they had acquired a television. This is a council estate, of course.
Yes.
Extraordinary thing. And we went in, and in the corner was this thing that looked. My mother was teetotal, so the fact that it looked like a cocktail cabinet shocked her rigid. She also deeply. I better not mention the name; it will still be known in Kendal. She passionately disapproved of our neighbour, and as we were going in, I could still see a very tight-fitted costume, television, probably the result of immoral earnings. Afterwards we discovered it was, but anyway, there was this tiny little screen. I sat down, cross-legged with the other boys at the front, our parents at the back. And one of my memories, well, of course, it was a day exactly like this, except it was wetter, it was colder, and it was perpetually windy. And these extraordinary scenes of the procession were very different from now, because there were all the peers in their robes round the abbey, bedraggled, soaked. In the carriage procession, because again there was a long carriage procession backwards and forwards, much, much longer than now, there was one person who insisted on keeping the canopy down. That was Queen Saloti of Tonga. Queen Saloti of Tonga, one of the Polynesian dependencies, huge, powerful woman. The crowds adored her. And there was this tiny little man seated opposite her. And it's one of the great naughty stories which I will dare a new cancellation by telling.
Go on, do.
This is Sir Noel Coward, and asked who the little gentleman was sitting opposite Queen Saloti of Tonga, replied with a knowing smile, "Mum, a lunch."
Give me that very politically incorrect.
Very politically.
But actually rather funny.
Many politically incorrect things.
Yeah.
Very funny. But the serious memories are of this solitary figure in white. We saw with this procession the Queen Camilla,
yes,
in white.
Yes.
Imagine not this stately figure of an older woman, this slim, elegant, dark-haired woman.
Very young.
Yeah, 28.
Yeah.
Alone. Charles, King and Queen were with each other. You saw those rather touching glances that they exchanged with each other. The Queen was alone,
yes,
throughout, and surrounded by old men in spectacles, old men in, well, I had no idea what a coat was, in these long sort of curtain things, and then the entire abbey. This was a huge difference between then and now. The entire abbey, a sea of scarlet and white, because of the peers everywhere.
Yeah.
And of course, they all had coronets. And again, I remember that the crowning was wonderful now. But imagine if, rather than just the king, you had the entire abbey putting those on their heads. And what struck me, if I can just come away from my memory now, and my new memories of this coronation, you suddenly I felt, and particularly again with the very prominent role of the Prince of Wales, how unbelievably small and isolated the royal family was. This was a kind of, almost a family ceremony. There were so few others that we now have, where even in 1953, the monarchy was a kind of apex of all of these grand, pompous people wearing robes and coronets and carrying staffs and whatever. Now, and I thought it, with its magnificence, its splendour, in that sense it felt very vulnerable. Very small, very vulnerable.